Hi, this is Daniel,
And I'm Ruth. Hello.
and we're back at Israel Uncovered
We are.
after a little holiday break.
Yep. It's been Passover, Easter. Well,
Yeah.
it's Easter Monday. So to those celebrating Easter, happy Easter to you all.
Happy Easter, happy Passover. Hope you had a pleasant holiday. And today actually we were thinking about what to talk about, and we're going to talk about something everyone everywhere is talking, which is deportations. Everyone's talking about deportations, students being deported, people being deported, illegal immigrants being deported, everywhere in Europe, US. Some countries are more pro, against. So we're just going to talk about deportations in general.
We are. And I think the UK is not as behind it as the US.
Right.
I think the UK and the US really, I think America are really doing something about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think before even deportations, I think the big issue is the illegal immigration out of control. So kind of like before even deportations is how many thousands and thousands of people, in the case of the US, millions of people are able to get through a border, and the government or the security forces aren't able to manage the people coming. So kind of like the first issue is kind of like borders that are not secure. I think like that's kind of like the root cause, right? Like all these people getting through borders in the UK is through boats. and ships. So I think every government, even the current UK government, everyone wants to kind of like put a stop to illegal immigration. Not only because you end up with thousands of people that you have to.
Well, thousands of people who hate us, basically.
Well, I don't know if everyone hates you.
Not everybody, but I think many do. They come in and they don't want to integrate with us.
Yeah, but again, I don't know to what extent I think people immigrate because they want a better life, an easier life, benefits that they get in the UK. They land and they get like £1,000 on a phone and a bank account. So it's just to get like a better lifestyle. So people go to another country, like Mexicans go to the US because they want to do this. Then it's true that also within that group there's going to be criminals, convicts, etc. There's going to be all these what they call bad actors. By the way, I hate the term illegal aliens. I think like the Trump administration keeps saying illegal aliens.
Really? That's terrible.
Why do they refer to people as aliens? I think it's so weird.
That is weird.
So I'm like, okay, it's an illegal immigrant. So I get it. I mean, there are routes to immigrate legally and to process those things and to apply for a green card and to do all sorts of things. Again, in the UK, I've been an immigrant all my life. I was an immigrant in the UK. I had like a student visa. Like, so again, there are ways you have to go through the motions. And if you don't, and if you live in a world where it's like, oh, well, but they have it worse than us, so anyone should be able to come, then that's not sustainable for any country in the world.
Yeah.
Because then what do you do? Like, people have like a finite amount of resources, healthcare. You cannot just open your doors and your gates for anyone that wants to come.
No, absolutely not. And I think, Douglas Murray has been promoting his book all over the podcast world, a lot in the UK. And he is basically saying that, families like the Abedi family, whose son...
What happened?
The son of the father, they escaped Colonel Gaddafi.
Okay.
And then the son blew up the Manchester Arena.
Okay.
He was the one who, and now there was the brother was the one who poured boiling oil all over a prison guard.
Yeah.
So these are people who have not integrated, who have caused a huge amount of pain and suffering to British people who were just enjoying a concert. And when Douglas Murray says less Islam in the UK, I do agree with him.
Yeah, but immigration is not just Islam.
It's not just no, of course not.
Because the immigration comes from all sorts of countries.
Yeah.
And actually, I even have, for example, well, I mean, after Brexit, when I have lots of friends that said to me, oh, it's such a shame because we used to have really good Polish workers.
Yeah, but amazing.
And now because of Brexit,
So-
we don't have them.
Yeah.
So that's why also I do think not all immigration is equal. So it's also true that depending where it comes from, like, let's say, like the basic values and moral code and civil code in a society to function of a Polish immigrant that comes to the UK or a Spanish immigrant that comes to the UK is pretty, the values around family, civic behavior in the streets and stuff is different to someone that comes from, from Libya.
Yeah.
Like you said, so these people. Now, the other thing I find that is really interesting is so for example, going back to what you said, I was like the son of these immigrants that blew up the Manchester arena, is that for some reason, it's often the second generation.
Yeah.
So I think many times the parents leave their countries, they open a little corner shop, or they work in a factory, or they kind of like, basically they escape that to get a better life, and then is the next generation that get radicalized in the UK.
Yeah.
In whatever, the ones that fall in the wrong groups or gangs or whatever. I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, although interestingly, I think something I watched a documentary about the grooming gangs, the Rochdale.
Yeah.
And there it's generational. So it started with the parents.
Right.
And went down through the generations. So they were raping so that the fathers started raping the mothers.
Right. So it's like a different cultural thing. But I think for terrorism, for kind of like terrorism and jihadism in Europe, every time I hear something, it's second generation.
Yeah.
I find like the first generation, they just leave the country looking for a better life, get really kind of like low profile jobs or in a corner shop or in a factory or something. And then the kids get the kids that, by the way, some kids have then an amazing education, go to university, totally integrate, which also happens. And others kind of like, wherever. I mean, it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter if it's in Luton or in Birmingham, but then let's say like if they mix with the wrong people, I think the actual jihadist terrorist cells are stronger in Europe in many cases than there are in the Middle East. And the parents that try to escape it is kind of like the greatest tragedy, that then the sons and daughters get indoctrinated in Europe to commit all these terrorist attacks or like car rammings or whatever.
Yeah, I think something I'm struggling with, especially with just watching quite a bit of UK media, is how you really don't see Israelis going to blow up buses, blow up Manchester arenas. That it isn't Israelis and Jews doing that. It's jihadists.
Or Polish people. You also don't see again, or Spanish people.
Right.
Or Swedish people. Like that's the thing.
But hold on, the IDF, they're the ones on the front lines in Gaza fighting a war basically against jihad.
Right.
And there's no connection in the UK.
Because people haven't been to the Middle East.
They don't want to connect the two.
But again, if they don't want to connect what's happening in their streets to the attacks that they're suffering, how do you ask them to take that leap and connect it to somewhere of another place in the world they've never been to? So if they, if you say in the UK today that these attacks are driven by, an Islamist ideology, you're an Islamophobe.
Yeah.
You're you're cancelled, you're an Islamophobe. You kind of like, it's the least, it's like you don't know that. Maybe he was like with the car rammings in the Christmas markets in Germany. We don't know.
Yeah, it's a one-off.
It was a one-off. He's a bad actor. He's mentally unstable. He's a crazy person. Or like the guy that killed the girls in the Taylor Swift party.
Yeah.
We don't know. He was crazy. He was this. He was that. Everything's a one-off. Everything's an anomaly. There's no connection. And there's like again and again and again and again coming from the same ideology. So if they're still not making the connection themselves about the people that are being killed in the streets, how do you expect them to make the connection to the IDF, especially when all the media is like, the IDF are going like, to schools and mosques for breakfast, lunch and dinner to kill Palestinian children. I mean, how are they ever going to make that, like, it's...
I think it's just very frustrating for us here, who can see clearly. We're not under any illusion.
Yeah, but that's why, in a way, for me, it's calming, because people here know where they stand and what they're up against.
The moral clarity is clear here. There is moral clarity.
But that's my worry, that people over there are willfully blinded to it and sticking their head in the sand. So my worry, I was watching actually this I think she's Ethiopian, like this, like human rights, and she said, like, somebody
against
asked her,
anti-Semitism.
No.
Oh no.
She said, what gives you the biggest nightmare at night? And she said, the fall of Europe. And she's like, that really gives me nightmares. And again, a lot of people would think, oh, I'm just an alarmist, I'm exaggerating.
No.
Again, I was in London, it's true, I had a lovely time.
Yeah.
It's still beautiful, I can still go shopping and this and that. But there is a massive shift. There is a massive shift, and people.
And you noticed it. You felt it. You saw it. How did it manifest for you?
Central London, when I went shopping. So let's say, for example, when it comes from people to the Middle East, and the influx of people from the Middle East and Muslim countries. For example, there were places like, so for example, Harrods has always been known for that.
Yeah.
So Harrods since forever, all the rich people from Arab countries went and shopped there. So like, that's kind of like since forever, that's been known for that. And that's great. And that's part of it. And all the, the rich Saudis and this and that, that's where they go shop, and their wives and their girlfriends, whatever. But there's other places like Selfridges or Liberties that when I was living there, they were a lot more British and a lot less Middle Eastern. So that's kind of like where you see like I was you go to like Regent Street, Oxford Street, Selfridges, all of that. And I don't know, it
How
used
did
to
you
be
find
a
the
lot.
tube?
I found it fine, actually. I keep hearing stories that it's terrible and that it's chaos and all of that. I didn't experience it. It was actually a flashback to when I was living in London. And sadly, I was there in like rush hour, so I was just like screaming with all the people working. So the tube was fine, the city centre, everything was fine, and I just didn't experience any bad experiences. But you do see the shift. You go to central London, and it's like, wow, the demographics are really shifting.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but it is something that is happening.
It is.
So kind of like going back to, and again, if these are well-educated, well-adjusted, I did see a lot more burqas. I remember like when I was living there, it was weird to see just like all these women in burqas. But
you'd get it, it was quite seasonal. So I know that in the summer, there were a lot more because they would come from the very hot countries in the Middle East to London.
Right.
A lot of them had property here.
Yeah.
But now it's become like the increase is daily. Like you really notice it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like also like part of the landscape, I guess. And it was like, before it was like, oh my God, there's like this woman like completely covered, and now it's like everywhere. Like you go to central London.
Yeah.
Again, some people get very offended by burqas. I don't. I
just think we should see people's faces. It's a Western country, and I think people's faces should be visible.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking more like, there's hijabs and then there's burqa. You're talking about the one where you don't see the faces.
The ones where you don't see the faces. They're just, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In the UK, it looks odd, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit.
And it's not something I agree with. It's not something I would.
Yeah,
but then
the fully covered faces is a bit. So it's, again, for someone that is not your culture, like you say, seeing someone with a covered face, it's weird. It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. Let's say, like, you know, you're in a restaurant, or you're like, you know, you're shopping, and then there goes the question of, like, you know, should you adapt to their standard and their lifestyle,
No.
or should they adapt to, like, British values and lifestyles?
They
And
should
that's-
adapt to British lifestyle and values.
And that's where all the debate goes through. And again, you know, if you go to Saudi Arabia or if you go to Dubai, you cannot wear that.
I
and
would
that's
not be
fine.
that's and I would
You
choose not
accept
to go
that.
and I would choose not to go to there because I can't wear what I want.
Or if you choose to go,
If I choose to go, then I'd have to put up and shut up.
right, you have to, like, adhere to
And
the dress code
absolutely,
in that place.
absolutely.
You know, like in Israel, if you go to a more religious area.
Yeah, if you go to the
or if
Western
go-
Wall, you
go
cover
to
your
the West-
shoulders.
exactly.
You cover your shoulders, and you're respectful.
Well, if you go to the Vatican,
Yeah,
you cannot go, like, in, like, shorts and tank top and go into, like, the
Yeah.
16th chapel. Like, again, there are dress codes and there are values and there are things, and you're right, you have to, like,
Yeah.
adjust to, like, the local customs and traditions. So there's all of that. But then, kind of like going back to deportations, to me the most surprising things about the debate is, like, everything is that it's become so political, and it's like, are you pro or against, are you pro or against? And to me, something like deportations is such a basic, like people should not go illegally into a country.
Right.
And if they go illegally, then they should.
I wouldn't have dreamt of coming here illegally.
Right.
You know,
No, and I always say, it's like, if you go into an airport and try to cross, like the security of passport, if you try to cross immigration in every airport without a passport and try to jump the fence, you'll be arrested, if not shot. So why is it that if you come through a boat or through a crossing in the southern border, no, that's fine and that's acceptable, and all of a sudden we have to give you, like, all these rights and money and refuge
Yeah.
and this and that. So, like, that's what, like, is like, why is it? I don't even understand why is it such a hot political debate, because if you don't have borders, you don't have a country.
yeah.
So what I really struggle with the whole deportation thing is why is this such a controversial issue?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to go back a couple of weeks to when 2 UK MPs came to Israel
Yeah.
and were refused entry because they were known for their anti-Israel rhetoric.
Yeah.
And I 100% agreed with Israel. Israel did say that they'd put them up in a hotel whilst they lodged their appeal, and they said no. So they got on the first plane back, which, by the way, was paid for by Israel. And they got back and then spouted how dreadful they were. Well, if you're going to spout anti-Israel rhetoric, if you're going to basically spread lies about this country, what do you expect?
But it's not even that. It's like entering another country is a privilege, not a
It
right.
is.
And the person from that country is like entering a shop or a home. Like,
Yeah.
you get you can refuse entrance if you want to.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, that has also happened the other way around. That,
Yeah.
like, Israeli politicians have been refused
Yeah.
entry to the UK for
And-
whatever
and-
reason.
and
And that's
by-
okay.
And by the way, I would have supported the sanctions against the Ben Gvir, against the Smotrich.
Whatever.
I would have
But
supported that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But my point is that, like the UK also implements those restrictions.
Right.
And that's also okay.
It's also okay.
So.
But the way the Labour MPs were up in arms about it, this was terrible.
But that's what I say. It's like they don't have a leg to stand on. They're just politicizing something. So again, they're just making a debate out of something that shouldn't even be a debate.
Yeah.
And that's my whole point about deportations. Like, you enter someone's country, the country can refuse to accept your entry for whatever reason. They don't want you, they don't agree with this, whatever it is. You have this track record of things you've said, of things you've written, things you've done, criminal record, whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't even have to explain it. Again, it is a privilege, it's not a right. But they did it. I think they kind of like also knew that they were gonna get it. By the way, even the UK government, the guidelines and recommendations by YouGov is that if you have done that type of criticism, you should not travel to Israel. So even
Right.
by the UK standards, they shouldn't have traveled to Israel. Plus, Israel is completely right to refuse entry.
Yeah.
Plus, the UK have also refused entry for the same reasons of like Israeli politicians or other politicians, and it doesn't, and that's fine. My point is, of course, they're like up in arms because they just want to turn it into a political debate against Israel. So again, or for this or for that. That's why, like, I'm like, these are so. To me, these things are so not controversial. They're not even difficult. They're not difficult. They're not controversial. They're not weird.
Yeah.
They're not political. They're not like whatever. Like that's what it is. Again, you know, like.
I mean, I find some of the journalists who report on Israel and report on the war and the anti-Israel narrative that they're driving. I always find it interesting because it's like they come here, these journalists, they stay in our hotels, they eat our food, they hang out with our people. Are we really that awful? Yet they still insist on driving the...
Yeah, but they have a job and they work for a certain publication or radio and they have like an editorial narrative and an editorial line, and they just say what the editorial line is. And that's the problem with journalism. They don't say what they see and they don't really speak the truth.
No, they don't.
They just say whatever the narrative is. So if you're right wing or left or this is different. So like, you know, so even though let's say like the journalists from the Guardian and the Telegraph will be staying in the same hotel, hanging out and having pints together in the center of Jerusalem, one of them will write this and the other one will write that.
Yeah.
And they've both seen the same thing. So that's what happens. But going back to deportations,
sorry,
I just think it's kind of like a to me it's like a non-debate. And even now there's a lot of controversy of a few students from the US that they
100%.
and again, that's not even deportation. They just rescinded the student visas because they're like, okay, if you're promoting jihadism, anti-America, death to America, death to Israel, causing chaos in universities, and it goes back to like, you know, why do adults think actions don't have consequences? Why and again having a student visa in the US because is a privilege, is not a right. So you have a student visa, then you abuse your power spewing hate against America, against Israel, causing chaos in a campus, and then you get rescinded the right for a visa. Again, is it surprising? Is it weird? No. To me, what is surprising and weird is that they didn't do it before.
Oh, right.
And to more people.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my view. You know, if you don't create chaos and you go to study and you're an exemplary student from wherever you are, like that. I mean, that's not what is happening. But of course, you know, the media is always with the lens of like, oh, this student just because he spoke up against this, it's like, well, not really. No. I mean, if every student that went to like a pro-Palestine march got deported or rescinded the visa, it'd be like hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So again, these are like very selected agitators. You know, they are dangerous people, and the US doesn't want them in their campuses, and I agree with that.
I do as well. I hope that the UK catches up, because I just don't feel that the same level of
self-awareness?
No, just the same level of consequences. The same level of consequences going to apply there. It's like,
well, I think that's what's happening.
They just allow it.
Yeah,
they love allowing it all.
Yeah, I think what people are frustrated at the moment, now that I was in England, is that they're enforcing very harsh laws on very little things, like all the kind of like, I don't know if like 3,000 people were like visited by the police or arrested for putting the wrong tweets or saying something racist or something, which again it is bad. I mean, I don't agree with saying something racist on Twitter.
No.
But, and then like somebody gets their car stolen or their house burgled.
Or they rape a child.
Well, the rape a child is one thing, but my point is like with day-to-day crime, like get your car stolen in England or get like your house burgled. Is like, good luck getting a police.
Yeah.
So, and then like, you know, put something on Twitter and then you have 5 people in your house interrogating you, which again, I'm not saying that. I actually also agree with like people posting hateful comments and getting like, knock knock, is it you that posted this hateful thing? I think it's great. I do wish they also implemented it applied also when people post hateful things against Jews.
Right, the anti-Semitism has gone out of control, and nobody's being reprimanded
for some miraculous
for it.
reason that doesn't apply. But besides that, I think the big frustration with people is like, okay, I mean, you get like a phone stolen in central London, snatched from your hand.
Yeah.
Good luck. I mean, it's not even like, oh, sorry, mate.
The third world, that London has become the third world country.
It's interesting you say that, because I was watching the Spanish news a couple of days ago, and I said to my mum, Spain is really quickly becoming a third world country, because they were discussing about like train delays and broken trains and lines, and basically public transport is a mess, especially when it comes to trains. And they had this person talking about like, well, yeah, we need to prioritize all the stations. We're going to put the budget in the broken escalators and elevators across all these stations. And I was like, what? Is that Spain? That's not the Spain I grew up into. I was like, because if you said the priorities, like, we're going to do these high-speed trains, so that add these new routes. Like, I always grew up listening to like improvement, new high speed, new this. And then this kind of like senior person kept saying, yeah, well, our priority is to fix broken escalators and elevators across all these hundreds of stations. And I was like, that's kind of like third world to me. So there's all these, basically the tide is shifting in Europe.
Really is.
And countries that were first world country. And by the way, I was born in a third world country, and I grew up in a third world country in South America. So I know what it looks and what it feels like. And funnily enough, a lot of immigrants in Spain from South America, from Venezuela, Argentina, they're actually the ones, they're the prophets there.
Right.
Because they're like, we see where this is going to.
Yeah.
This is like, this is like Venezuela in the 90s. This is like Argentina in the 70s. It's like, we know what comes next. And it's like, when people start saying these things, acting this way, they see all the signals because they've lived it before. So that's also quite interesting in Spain. And it's a shame. I think like, London, when you cannot safely walk. It's funny, I went for drinks.
You can't safely walk. And there was somebody who came over here, I've forgotten her name, you'll know her. Sorry, I can't remember her name, but she basically said, she was here in Israel for an anti-Semitism conference, and she said to the taxi driver, oh my God, there are so many women walking around the streets alone at night. Well, this is partly why I have moved here, because I have always walked home 3 a.m. It doesn't matter what time it is. I've never felt intimidated. I've never felt scared. And the UK, there is no way on God's earth I would do that in London now.
Also, for example, I went for a drink with a friend of mine from London and her colleagues after work. Just, went for a pint, meet some people. And one of them came, I think, from Ireland. She was like a new colleague. And I was like, oh, how's it been? Have you had a good time in London? He's like, yeah, but yesterday I got my phone stolen. It's like, where? Just outside the London Eye. I was sitting and somebody came and snatched my phone. So again, it's not even like, it's not things I read in the press or scaremongering. No. It's like everyone I speak to, it's happened to them.
Yeah.
So, and again, this girl, I don't know, like maybe like in late 20s, early 30s, she was sitting there. She was actually on the phone. She was like, are you talking? They snatched it off her hand.
While she was on the phone.
While she was on the phone. I was like, was that at night? She's like, no, middle of the day. So all these things are what slowly turn countries into third world countries.
It is.
Because they change the vibe of a city. Yeah. Then it's not as sexy to be a tourist there.
No.
Then, and again, it's also true that center of tourism, I was in Rome, also there's tons of pickpockets, also in Spain, Barcelona, like.
It's everywhere.
City centers are known for like
taxi drivers try to rip me off.
Right, that's universal. But I think...
But phones London being ripped out of hands, and it doesn't matter whether you're 20 or whether you're 80.
In the middle of the day.
They do it to grandmas.
Yeah.
Pushing their trolleys.
Well, they do it to them the most because they can't run and chase after the thieves. But that's happening a lot in London. So that's just sad.
Yeah, it is.
That's just sad because...
I'm like, deport.
Yeah, but
if you think you can
So you think deportation will be the solution for that?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
I really do. Get rid.
Right.
The social contract has broken in the UK.
I
Here
think it's
it's
across
still-
Europe, by the way.
I
People
think it's
feel
across
like that
Europe.
across Europe.
Sorry, I kind of meant to say Europe. Here, the social contract still very much exists, and I'm so grateful to it.
Interesting. It's true. It's that social contract of like civil behavior.
Right.
You know, a friend of mine from London came a few years ago, and we went to a coffee shop, and he actually forgot his phone on the table. He's an old colleague from the BBC. And he left it, and then we just went for a walk, this and that, and then like 20 minutes later, he's like, oh shit, my phone, I left it in the coffee shop. I was like, let's go back. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, let's go back. And he was just there on the table. He's like, Daniel,
And that
in
was here?
London, in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, here it
He's
would be there.
like, in London, these would have like disappeared in 5 seconds.
Less.
So he was like, he couldn't believe it. He's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? We went for a walk for half an hour, came back, and it was just where I
Yeah,
left it.
because, you know, we don't feel the need to steal other people's shit.
Right. Right.
And on that note,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for deportations and stuff, I think it has turned political, but I also think there's a huge majority that I don't know if it's just with deportation, but like feel like something needs to be done.
yeah, it does.
Something's not right.
There needs to
I
be a
don't like-
heavy hand on it.
Right.
And I do think that
Right.
Trump is kind of taking the lead on this.
Right.
And
Well,
I
there
just
is-
hope that Europe follows
Yeah.
suit.
And whether that is stopping immigration for certain countries, whether that is deporting people that behave badly, whether that's deporting students that go against your values, whether that is actually more law enforcement and more police in the streets. So like, it doesn't have to be only deportation. It's like, okay, what needs to be done? Because I think there's a huge sense of frustration of like, I'm not safe in my high street.
Yeah.
I'm no longer safe to just travel like around
Yeah.
central London. Like I'm scared that
And
if
that's
I'm
what
on the
people
phone
pay their
in central
taxes
London, I
for.
wouldn't be speaking on my phone, by the way, on the like anymore. And I was like, well, I remember that's how it would be.
And you
that's
never have a handbag. I never have a handbag that doesn't have a proper closure.
zipper, and
Zip,
put it
like,
in the
just
front instead
no-
of the back, stuff like that. And I'm like, those are the things that I would do in South America. Again, third world country. Those are the precautions I used to take growing up, or when I go to visit my brother in Mexico.
Yeah.
That's how I behave when I'm in Mexico.
And-
That's how I behave when I'm in Peru.
Yeah.
That's not how I used to behave when I lived in London, but now I have to behave like that.
Yeah.
So that to me shows like a huge shift. And again, people want drastic action, whether it's more police enforcement, less immigrants, whatever it is, more cameras. I don't know. People want radical change, and also people are really frustrated when their concerns are either ignored or gaslighted. Oh, no, it's good. We're
Well,
better
that-
than ever.
Well,
like
that
that's
has
the
been
worst.
that has been
That's what pissing
the
people off.
theme. The theme in the UK for so long, which just frustrate and on so many different levels.
Yeah.
In so many institutions,
Right.
the gaslighting, the lies. You know, nobody tells the truth.
And also people are not speaking
Cover up. Nobody speaks up. It's
And also people are scared to speaking up, because if you say there's a problem with this, you're like, nobody wants to be branded as
you might-
racist.
and you might be fired, or you might be, you know,
Unpopular in things and all like this. So you cannot say something because it's so unpopular to say what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, because a lot of people are really unhappy. And again, this is not even London, but like go to Birmingham, go to Luton.
Right.
There's like people are really fed up.
yeah.
And again, there's lots of ways to tackle it. Not all of them are like, you know,
Heavy, yeah.
deporting everyone. It can
Yeah.
be more secure informants. It can be different type of education.
Or just
It
better
can-
policing.
Yeah.
Right.
Or it can also be like,
Should we put people away in the prisons who need to be there and not the ones who don't?
correct. Or it can also be like cutting all the benefits for someone that comes illegally. So
Right.
it becomes less of an incentive to just get on a boat. So there's all sorts of things that can be done. But then the moment you entertain that conversation, a lot of people are like, you're just racist.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's annoying, because then that silences people, and
It
people
does.
don't speak out of fear.
Yeah.
And that's a shame, because then you cannot entertain an adult conversation of saying, okay, this can be done in security, this can be done in these type of people should be
you're
deported.
constantly brushing the truth away.
Exactly.
Brushing it under the rug.
Yeah.
Brushing the truth away.
And also this idea that no matter where an immigrant comes from is the same. And it's not. Like, you know, an immigrant from Spain or from Poland doesn't integrate in London into society and into the workforce like an immigrant from like Libya or Yemen, and that's the truth. Do I mean that Yemen people are evil and horrible? No, but also you have to face the facts that different people come from different societies and different cultures with different values. And I'm not saying stop the immigration from there, deport everyone from this country, but acknowledge
that there's a problem.
That there's a problem, and acknowledge that different people in different countries have different values.
Yes.
And when someone comes into your country with a different set of values, you either do something to help them adjust to your values.
Yeah.
But you cannot
have an integration program.
Exactly. Either have an integration program, education, whatever it is. But you cannot say like, no, it's fine, we're all people, we all want the same, we're all want the same, we're all the same.
We're not.
And then you're where we're now, where like you have like again, and the grooming gangs, and the race, and the jihadists, and this and the other. That's a consequence of ignoring, turning a blind eye to a reality that they know.
Absolutely.
Everyone knows.
Absolutely.
Everyone knows, everyone sees it. Like, it's there. It's there. It's in your streets. So we'll see. Again, that's my opinion. My opinion in general is that like everything, like the conflict here, everything is just political and politicized, where things are actually not that complicated, and most people see things at face value. They're just frustrated that they're silenced.
I'm very frustrated that the West is not seeing Israel and the IDF as being on the front lines. And I'm talking generally, because some people do. But I'm frustrated by that myself.
I'm not. Because I don't think they should see it in one light or the other. They shouldn't even see it at all. It's a conflict thousands of miles away. It's tiny in the...
No, but it's not a conflict thousands of miles away. It's on our streets in the UK. It's on the streets in America.
No, but they don't see the connection.
No, they don't.
But the IDF is not in the streets of London. Like...
No, but they're the ones fighting.
But they don't see the... Again... They don't, they keep saying that it's a random explosion. The Manchester, the MEN arena, it's all like a random...
it's just we're the ones losing our boys and girls in this war.
Right.
And really for the freedom of the West. And I feel like there's no appreciation, there's no
Ukrainians feel the same.
The Iranians feel
Ukrainians.
The same. Oh, Ukrainians.
Yeah, because they also feel like they're at the front of a war that has much wider implications for Europe. And Europeans, it depends who. Of course, if you're closer to Ukraine, if you're like Polish and stuff, or like Germany, you see the danger. But you're in Spain or in France, and you see it as a faraway conflict that has nothing to do with you. So again, if it's not in your doorstep, it's very hard for people to see the urgency.
Yeah.
They see it as something else. Again, Taiwan, all of these things. People just see it as this is just a faraway thing. It's got nothing to do with me. And it does. It really does.
It really does.
Or like Yemen. Yemen downing ships. It has a direct impact to the price of your groceries and your fuel. And that's why the UK bombed Yemen.
And the US.
And the US, they bombed Yemen for a reason. They don't bomb Yemen because... they hate people from Yemen or whatever. It's because it has a direct impact on their economy. That's what I always say, like everything always links to money.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, it's like funding, money, cutting funding and all of that. So yeah, very, very complex, but at the same time, very, very simple. I just don't see why people should be able to enter another country legally. I've never been able to enter another country legally, so I don't know why someone else should be able to enter into the UK.
I'd love to go and spend, 5 years in America. But to get a green card,
but then people also play always the empathy card. But then always people play like in Spain is like, well, but they're coming from Morocco, from really difficult situation and this and that. I'm like, well,
sod off.
There's no hunger in Morocco. It's not like. So that's why people like. But then they play like, well, they're coming from a better life. It's like, I get it that they're coming for like the medical treatment and the benefits they get and the money and the payouts and all of that and living in a free hotel.
Yeah.
I get it, but like don't play on the. That's why I always say it's like don't play on the empathy card. Have empathy to your fellow citizens and to the people in your country who all of a sudden are not safe in the streets.
Yeah.
That's why it's a double-edged sword. So like every time people play that empathy card, I'm like, yeah, I'm very empathetic, but. Number one, they have a government and they should, hold their government responsible and accountable, and they should be protesting against their government. Number two, if they want to immigrate, they should do it legally, because if we start accepting that everyone can go wherever they want illegally, then it's just chaos, and basically like there's no countries. If
Yeah.
you don't have a border, you don't have a country.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that. And
Yeah.
and you know, would you accept any random person into, and a country is like a house. You
Yeah.
know, would you accept any random person into your house? No.
No.
Okay, is there like a homeless person? He's very sad, he's very unfortunate, he's very this. You can try to help, you can give them
Right.
money, you can try to do something, but you cannot open the door to your house
No.
to everyone you want.
No.
Like that's just chaos, and I think that's when like this kind of like ideological, political thing sets in, because it's based on something that is not sustainable or compatible with reality.
Yeah.
So, on that note, thank
On
you
that
so
note,
much.
again.
We'll be talking more.
Thank
Bye.
you.